So let's kick it off today. We have a real star guest of our flagship partner, SAP here. His name is Carsten Linz. He did his PhD in innovation and entrepreneurship, so he really knows what he's talking about here at Q Summit. He's also an investment committee member of the High-Tech Gründerfonds. This is the fund Alex von Frankenberg was speaking about yesterday. He also teaches about innovation at Mannheim Business School, for example, and other a little less renowned institutions like St. Gallen, KIT, or Stanford. So, Carsten Linz has worked for Siemens, and after several functions at SAP, he is now a business development officer and the global head of the Center for Digital Leadership. He's also founded several startups, so he really knows what he's talking about, and he's engaged as a business angel in 15 startups. In February, personally, I attended a speech by his boss, Bill McDermott, the CEO of SAP, and Bill McDermott was very enthusiastic because 2016 was a great year for SAP. And while Bill's speech was mainly about thanking the great salespeople, he did not miss to mention that the crucial factor of success for his company is innovation. And I'm pretty sure that Carsten Linz will have some advice for us how innovation can happen not only in startups, but also in very large organizations. So now it is up to you to prove that you can not only party, but also pay some attention in the morning. So clap your hands please for Carsten Linz.
Actually, that Friday morning is the best slot to have a keynote. Is it true? So I heard that I had tough competition because you were partying quite hard last night. So today having a keynote is a challenge, but I face it. So really happy to be here with you. It's my pleasure, it's my honor. That's one of the universities I'm sometimes teaching. Today I have the pleasure to deliver a keynote here at that fantastic setting of the Q Summit. I heard you had fantastic 2 days, and I would like to dig into something which is really very close to my heart. It's kind of that, on the one hand side it's entrepreneurial leadership, on the other hand side it's innovation. And actually these are the two sides of the same medal, as you know. And what we see is that the way innovation is brought to the market, to the world, is changing quite substantially. And I will talk a bit about what that means, and it means something for both corporates, but also means something for startups. So this is kind of what you can expect in the next, I think, 40 minutes. So evidently I was told 5 minutes already right now, but we'll catch up. Good. On innovation leadership, digital, radical, exponential. When was the last time, actually, you did something for the first time? So that's a question which is pretty easy to answer if you have already founded your startup. But I had a couple of conversations already this morning, and it sounds like not everyone had started his own venture, his own business. So what was the last time? Just think about it for a second. What we're seeing is actually the following. I mean, there's always that, you have the large companies, you have the startups, so everyone is talking about that. And I would proclaim that actually the gap is getting smaller. And this has something to do because the way innovation is brought, as I said, to the world is changing. So what it's actually about is two different leadership modes. One is an evolutionary leadership mode, and the other one is a revolutionary leadership mode. And very successful companies, very successful businesses actually have both. You might have heard the term of ambidextrous organizations, so that you actually need as an organization two strong hands. A leadership, an entrepreneurial leadership hand, and an evolutionary or sustainable management hand. And actually, even if you're a startup, after a while, I know it from the ones I've invested, you need some focus. You need to make a strategic bet, and you have to scale it out. So fundamentally, we're seeing there are two different modes of leadership, of management, and both are relevant. So what we're talking about is the ultimate thing of, what Schumpeter always talked about, bringing something new together, so combining the dots in normal ways and jumping to the next trajectory. And this requires basically both an evolutionary and a revolutionary mode. What the world is changing is the following. I mean, everyone is talking about exponential. You know, everything is exponential these days. Singularity University talks about exponential. But fundamentally, I don't want to dig into, Moore's law. I don't want to talk about artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning right now. But what I would like to talk about, what does it mean for you as a startup founder? What we're seeing actually is the cost to launch a high-tech startup is falling exponentially. So, kind of in the old days, when I started my first startup, I literally founded it with a fax machine under the bed in my bedroom. So we started from scratch, really literally from scratch, zero. Actually, most startups I'm invested in, I'm seeing in the high-tech group from wherever, actually they start at 60 or 70% rate. Why? Because they build on elastic cloud infrastructures and they build on top of platforms. Which means actually they don't start from scratch, from zero. But many of the startups that you're seeing here start already at 60 or 70%. What does that mean? It means that you have much more attention span as a founder team to really focus on what really counts, what really differentiates, what really sets you apart from the rest of the pack. It's the end-to-end business process, and it's a world-class experience. And it's your business model. So actually, in a very good condition today, if you start your venture today compared to 10 years ago. And this is giving corporates a pretty tough time. Because the second effect of that is there are much more startups out there. As the cost of experimentation is really falling dramatically, actually the gap between a startup experimenting and a large company experimenting is getting smaller. Today you can consume supercomputing power that actually, only very exclusive labs had 10 or 50 or 20 years ago. You can consume them as a service for a couple of bucks. So if you look into that, it's pretty easy for you to beat large companies these days. It never has been easier. This is why so many large companies are actually very afraid of startups these days. Not only in the fintech circle, everywhere. So I can tell you. So actually I would say you're in pretty decent shape if you start a business today. So I think it's a good time to be an entrepreneur. And by the way, you have all these fantastic conferences like Q Summit. As an entrepreneur, these days you're on stage. Everyone likes you. 10 days ago, or 10 years ago, around 2000, still know the dot-com bubble burst? That was a different story. No one was on stage being and saying, I'm an entrepreneur, I have founded a startup. That was an ugly thing. So times are changing, so you're living in the right time. Let's ask the second question. Do you still innovate proprietarily? Are you product-centric? So I would suggest that the way we innovate today is quite different from the way innovation management, innovation was brought to the world a couple of times ago. So I started a bit, and you mentioned it with my PhD. So actually I tracked a bit, how innovation was brought to the world. And I can tell you it's shifting quite dramatically. And I would like to quickly elaborate on that to give you a flavor, kind of what does it mean to innovate successfully today. So it starts actually with kind of the ambition. That always, we always had, you want to found, scale a business, which has been pretty much replaced by, many people call that 10x, some call that massive transformation purpose, singularity talks like that, some call it zero gravity thinking. Fundamentally, the ambition of new ventures, of entrepreneurial leaders today is much bigger than I had when I founded my first startup, I have to admit. If you look what Mark Zuckerberg is talking about, what Elon Musk is talking about, I said, as an entrepreneur, you're in a revolutionary mode. but kind of the revolution they're talking about is not a small thing. It's really like changing the way the world is ticking in a substantial manner. So just take, for example, make a man and multi-planet spaces, SpaceX. That's, I would say, a pretty much transformative business purpose for an organization. It's not new. I have to admit that companies proclaim they're doing more than doing business. And when I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg at the Mobile World Congress last year, I also had that impression, is that marketing what he's talking about? But what's different though is, in the old world, everything which was not business was put to the edges. So at the core, you were managing your business, the ambition you had as a leader of an organization was very much focused on the business. And everything rest was kind of in the surrounding, was icing on the cake. What we're seeing today is it moved into the center place. So the business itself is meant to transform the world. And if you look at these ambitions here, these leaders have formulated, they all move kind of changing the world into the center place and basically derive a business from that, which is quite substantial shift from what we've been doing in the past. Oops, that was too fast. Let's talk about the new rules. So we're talking about the new rules of innovation. Let's talk about the second one. This is actually explaining, how you can transform business model types. So business models from one business model type, being product, into platform, or into project, which is more customer specific, or into a solution business model where you're ultimately selling the outcome. And for example, you're selling air, what Käsekonstruktion does, and not the compressors any longer. It's an output-driven business model. You usually operate the end-to-end process on behalf of the customer and manage against a certain service level agreement. Let's pick one of these examples. And I don't want to talk about Tesla, I don't want to talk about Airbnb, what everyone is talking about, but I want to talk about an old thing which is close to my heart. Especially because I'm much older than you are. When I started, like you, or most of you, not everyone, started in this room, I worked as a DJ. So during night shift, I worked as a DJ in the club, and today, during the days I started, so to make some money, and make my living. And actually, I was really fascinated of the idea of the iPod. Do you still remember Apple iPod? Anyone in the room still remembers that? That was especially the older ones. That was a small box with the idea selling you can put all the music that you're having on that little device. So actually, I think I was iPod buyer number 10 in the world or something like that. So I flew to the US, bought such a thing. Okay, I had the problem with the battery charger at home, so I could fix it. Then I wrapped it. Apple products today are very nice to unwrap. And then I was sitting there and was pretty much disappointed. Guess why? Not bad, but fundamentally what I learned, that the device is done. Because my assumption was, this is a product, I bought a product, something, a device where I could put all my music on, but it's not true. I bought into a platform business model. Fundamentally what I had to do is, I had to install iTunes. And without installing iTunes, this device is so dumb as you can hardly imagine. Nothing works. So fundamentally, all the power shifts to the platform. And potentially you've seen the very famous video of Simon Sinek, so where he talks about the why and so on. And that was actually the starting of that story, how Apple built that ecosystem of devices, basically all integrated into iTunes on the content side and into the App Store on the other hand side. I don't want to make it an Apple story here, but what you're seeing is it's really important to know in which business model you're active, because also it's important where you can be attacked. So let's continue with that story for one more second. Still remember there was a famous company these days where, a long time ago, that was Sony. And Sony would have actually been the natural inventor for the iPod. Still remember 25 years ago the Walkman. So iPod is actually the extension of the Walkman idea. So of course Sony felt like, hey, we have to bring such a device onto the market. And what happened there is actually they brought the device to the market, but they thought product business model. So they brought a product to the market. And it really took them 1 year to realize that actually they have no chance to win against Apple because they felt like they are competing with a product business model, despite the fact that Apple was applying a platform business model. So it's really important to know in which business model type you're acting, and also to keep it fresh. This is why actually, because Apple was very late to the party when it came to streaming, you know that, and they cried for $3.4 billion US, it's international. Not because of the headphones, but because of the streaming service, which is now, as we all know, the streaming service that we have at Apple. So, talking about understand your business model better, right? And know which business model you're acting, and also who you're attacking, or who might you attack, so that you really know the rules of the game. Let's talk agile. I mean, everyone is talking about design thinking these days. And I don't want to bore you with another session on design thinking. But you know what I learned? And fundamentally, we're meeting with 150 CXOs of large companies like the Panasonics of the world, and really large conglomerates, also to kind of navigate them through their digital transformation journey as the Center for Digital Leadership. And an interesting question I often get, how is it working with this agile approach? I mean, you're much closer to that agile world than anyone else. But it's not about design thinking. So my key learning of the agile story is actually the power of agile lies in the combination of design thinking, of agile development, potentially Scrum-based development, a DevOps model, plus Lean Startup. So just combine these four elements, they all have the underlying assumption that you're innovating in an agile fashion, that you incorporate the feedback from your clients, from their customers, and from your users. And then you fail, potentially, because you do experiment, but hopefully you fail like the Silicon Valley says, you fail forward. So you learn from that. So this is pretty fascinating if you think that end to end. And by the way, I'm not sure if you know that really already 10 years ago, SAP shifted the entire development organization on a large scale from traditional waterfall development towards Scrum-based development. And this really makes an impact because you can shorten down your innovation cycles quite dramatically if you combine it with DevOps models. This is pretty substantial gain. So what I'm saying, once again, the gap between innovation is happening in startups and innovation is happening in corporates is becoming smaller. You can apply the same methods and rules of the game, as long as you understand them. My favorite one is this kind of the fundamental shift that we see. In the old world, typically companies innovated, the product-centric, often R&D driven or R&D centric, so you had a large R&D organization, and often also proprietary. So the fundamental model that was everything based on was we can do it. And sometimes we need support from partners, potentially, but rather suppliers. The suppliers one level below our level of competence. Despite the fact that, for example, in the automotive industry, most of the innovation is driven from the suppliers. Now this is over. So what we shifted is from a proprietary product-centric R&D-centric approach towards an open, platform-based innovation approach, which happens in an open ecosystem where you crowdsource not only ideas but also talent. So not everyone has to be on your payroll any longer. Fundamentally, organizations, smaller ones, as you know, some of you are building an ecosystem, but also larger ones, rather rely on the power of the ecosystem. A key question for large companies will be, how do we convince people to work within a corporate framework? What is the value? What do they get from that? As human, you can run, and we all know that, a global business from every single Starbucks coffee in the world. If you run a global business, you can run it from every Starbucks coffee in the world. You don't need a corporate structure around it. So what is the reason for corporate structures? And I think one reason is that, you can help building these digital ecosystems, not only for you as a company, but primarily for your customers. This is why we're innovating not only proprietaries, of course, we open innovation ecosystem over at SAP. A couple of examples in Mannheim is actually something which our team has developed. It's actually, I would call it user experience at scale, digital user experience at scale. Fundamentally, you can, with facial recognition, voice recognition, do user testing on your device, on your smartphone, with a machine learning algorithm behind. We have penalty insights. If you're into soccer, we can help you as goalkeeper to really make sure that no one scores against you. Then we're working with a couple of startups, Perfecto Mobile, Building Radar, SnapPlanet, which are coming out of ecosystems. And I think I bring you one example of how that works actually. You have an end-to-end process, you're innovating in your business model. It's kind of really important that either you innovate on the end-to-end process, as well like what you did, integrating the payment process, or on the content side. Fundamentally, this is the difference between the App Store and the iTunes Store. The App Store is the end-to-end process, the iTunes would be the content side of the house. And having that ecosystem allows you to plug in to value which would have not been accessible so easy. To give you an example, we built that ecosystem with the European Space Agency. And today, we're exposing microservices which you as a startup can use and leverage to build pretty fancy applications. I can tell you it was very difficult for us to understand how to extract that satellite data from the more traditional, I would say, platforms which were rather geared towards scientists that ESA was using in the past. And what we did, we created value-added services that has already algorithms behind that you can consume from the HANA platform. So you as a startup can, on a consumption basis, for a couple of bucks, use these pictures, these data, and build a startup and a business around it. And this is kind of where I see the power of these ecosystems lying. And as you see on the picture, we had the pleasure to present that kind of one of these use cases, which we built also to Mr. Abe, the Japanese Prime Minister, and Mrs. Merkel, and CeBIT. Because what we showcase is that you can predict, it's a machine learning algorithm which we trained with all the landslides worldwide. And we could predict 15 days ahead landslides in Japan. This is what we showcased there. So you can basically proactively evacuate people, especially kindergartens and hospitals, but you can also find and identify the perfect spot for a first aid center. This is basically the power of the ecosystem because you can leverage something, access something, consume something as a service in a much easier fashion compared to what you have been having in the past. Are you still with me? Yeah, I got it. I started that the way innovation brought to the world is changing, and I elaborated on these new rules of the innovation game. I mean, what you expect, because this is why you're attending Q Summit, is actually what does that mean to me? How can I set myself apart from the other innovators out there? And I'm not sure if I know all the tricks, but I know some of them. And I feel like, which are the 3 recommendations I would give to you based on my limited experience? So if I were in your shoes, what would I do differently when I start my next venture. And here they are. Anyone knows Pierre Kronberg? Seems like no one knows him. I'm not surprised no one knows Pierre Kronberg. Pierre Kronberg is actually the swimming teacher at a pretty nice hotel at the Côte d'Azur. The Comte Cap Ferrat. So whenever you have time and money, go there, pretty nice place. And what they have is they have a pool which is open to the sea. They're pretty amazing. And actually Pierre Kronberg has been the swimming teacher at this very hotel for 49 years. Actually, he learned or he trained Marilyn Monroe to swim, the kids of Charlie Chaplin, and so on, you name it. And why I'm telling this story is that if you do something that you're really passionate about, you can be extremely successful. Always the question here, what is your definition of success? But I can tell you, every single venture I've seen that is built on the passion of the founder, what really drives you. You know, when was the last time you forgot about the time completely? You know, you looked at your watch, it was 5 hours, 6 hours later, and you didn't even recognize it. Some people call it flow, whatever you want to call it, but if you build your business on this passion, on what really drives you, it's actually one of the most difficult things in life to find out what really drives you. And if you start a venture, if you do something else in your life, it will help you to be successful. So don't ask the others what you should be doing. Find it out yourselves and build what you build on your passion. You will be much more successful than you might think. No one can stop you actually. Like Pierre Kronberg. Unfair advantage number 2. You know, one of the things which corporate companies sometimes do not understand is that in many cases they're trying to, that they have an assumption to innovate based on their understanding, on not based on what is really the problem. So some people call it that job to be done or use cases. To really figure out what the job to be done or the use cases is really pivotal for your success. And have you ever been at a doctor and you have that impression, that slight impression, that this guy or that lady is only trying to treat the symptoms? Same on my side. You know, you go there and you feel like, hey, I'm sick. And they say, sore throat, swallow these pills. Done. No, not done. Done deal? No. Fundamentally, what I expect from my doctor is that he or she digs deeper and really figures out why I'm sick. And then actually comes up with a mitigation strategy. And that's actually the same what I would give you as an advice for you as a startup founder. Dig deeper. Most successful startups I've seen, they do dig deeper. Many of them had deep experience in a given industry and knew exactly what's not going well, where really the fundamental problems are. And one of these instruments you can use is the root cause analysis. Pretty big in the IT industry, in a different context, but it's something that you could be using also for your purpose. It's fundamentally a very easy approach. You just ask why, and you do that 5 or 6 times. So actually, you find out something in the world which is a bit crappy, which is not going as you would like to see it, which makes you unhappy. That's actually the starting point for every great business. And then you ask, why is that happening? And then you take the answer of that question, and once again ask, why is that happening? So you dig deeper. And then you take that answer, and once again, why is it happening? And if you do that 5 or 6 times, try it out. I can promise you that you will find out much more what is really the problem behind the problem. What is really the root case. Is it a psychological problem? It has something to do with the relations of the user to other users, and so on. So try that. So don't treat the symptoms, but really resolve the underlying problems. Last one, And this is the Center for Digital Leadership, at least most of the people there. Yeah. And this is a great team. And the biggest unfair advantage, and these are basically the three elements which I see also when you have an unfair advantage as a startup compared to a corporate, is actually you can build your dream team. And by building your dream team, you can build your culture. Now, if you inherit a team, so I've been leading teams and organizations for, I think, 17, 18 years in my life. And I had 2 times in my life the opportunity, apart from my startup experience, in a corporate environment, to build up my dream team. So actually, I was employee number 1. I was given, the opportunity to build up a unit, an organization. And I can tell you, this makes a big difference. Basically, building up your organization, your team, sets you apart from everyone else. Despite the fact that you have 15 people, the other has 150, you blow them away, I can promise you. So whenever you experience a difference of inheriting a team or building your own team, you know what I'm talking about. So it's really about the passion, your ambition, what drives you. It's about really figuring out the root cause of the problems, and it's having a dream team, and by that, building your culture, and really making sure that you're involved in the hiring process. Because if your team is growing and you don't make sure that you're still involved in the hiring process at the beginning, before you scale, then your culture will dilute. So make sure that you keep up the spirit and the culture of your mentor. We talked a bit about the world, the innovation world, the way innovation brought to the world is changing. I gave you my 3 tips how I would start a venture today, based on my limited experience, but now it's on you. I mean, this guy is talking for 40 minutes here, but it's now on you. You know that. Sooner or later, always, you're in the audience of the one who have to do something. So it's now my call for action for you. What do I do with all the stuff that guy here on stage now told me? I think one piece of advice might be the following one. Goal is not meant in the old traditional deterministic way. Today we're in an agile world, we're a world of exponential change. So fundamentally, it's more that ambition, it's more that purpose that you're striving for in your organization. But the key is action. So don't think too long, don't wait too long. If you really take agile seriously, it means that from time to time you also fail, but you move, you advance. And experimenting, taking the data, learning from the data is really important. Just had that with a startup I'm interested in Berlin, where they're geared towards storytelling, and really had a larger challenge to move from, typical problem freemium model. So not too many were going for the premium model. Then we really digged into the data and we found out actually most functionalities there in the premium model already. But it really requires that you dig into the data. But then to move on and improve it step by step, and then you see like things are evolving. So it's the key is action. And this is the promotion slide that also SAP can help you with that a bit if you're a startup. But it's not kind of why I'm here today. It's just to let you know that SAP is really committed to support startups with .io, with our center, with the startup focus program, Sapphire Ventures, around the later stage. They're all also invested in LinkedIn. You might have seen that. So pretty successful VC, off-balance sheet in the meantime, and other ones. I'm really excited that we'll be seeing shortly a couple of social entrepreneurs and social enterprises or social startups after my presentation, because I also sit on the advisory board of social impact in Berlin, which is pretty decent. So if you really want to learn something about passion and how passion can drive progress for the world, this is, I think, a good place to look into what social entrepreneurs are doing. Let's wrap it up. Anyone, I mean, I brought two gentlemen with you, so nothing against the ladies in the room, but I found these two examples and I felt like they were fitting to what we want to achieve here together. Anyone knows Jean-Baptiste Chacois? He's a bit more famous than my swimming teacher from the Grand Hotel in Cap Ferrat. Actually, Jean-Baptiste Chacois was he was a French guy, and actually his father was very rich. And his father wanted to be, his father was a doctor, medical doctor, and he wanted that his son also becomes a medical doctor. Happening sometimes in the world, you might have heard about that. Unfortunately, his passion was for the sea. He wanted to be a seaman. He wanted to be a sailor. So actually he started medicine, and then his father died. So they inherited quite a lot of money. So he immediately stopped studying medicine and became what he ever wanted to be, a seaman. And he became pretty successful with that because it was built on his passion. So he became captain. He was actually the guy who led the French expedition to the South Pole. He was very famous. He actually discovered a couple of islands, and one of the islands he even gave a name. It's called the Chacois Island, so he called it after his father. But what I'm telling you the story is, he had a pretty nice ship after a while, and that ship was called Pourquoi pas. Pourquoi pas, you know, is the French word for why not. And his ambition was kind of, to challenge current assumptions and to go beyond them and surpass them. And that pourquoi pas is sometimes missing in the world. So if you take only away one tiny thing of my presentation, I would encourage you, because just one thought in between, just by being in this room today, you have basically a background, an education, which will always guarantee you to make the standard living. You will never sleep on the bridges. This gives you a ton of opportunities to really risk something. And risk has opportunity and it has threat. But I think you're empowered to do so. So take the spirit of Jean-Baptiste Chacois, ask the question, pourquoi pas? Why not bring more pourquoi pas to the world? And I'm a very honest guy. I have to tell you that in a very strong storm, in front of Ireland, his ship drowned, the guy died, but this theory still holds true. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If we have some time,
sure.
We have some questions, and I think it was an absolutely inspiring one session, so we'll sit here. And I think for insights, not only how to turn innovation to reality in small and big corporations, but also I think for the very personal development of each one of us. So thanks a lot. I know it's early, but hopefully you have some questions and seize the opportunity to have someone like Carsten here on stage. Yes. Okay, again. The game with dice.
Test. Yeah, thank you very much for this amazing speech. My question would be, what was your first why not situation, if I really could talk about that?
I think my first one, that's actually a good question. I never got that one. I have to think about it so I give you the right answer. My first, that's actually a really good question, why I had to think about it. But my first one was the following. I was always inclined to do something which is fast-paced, which has innovation at the core, and is very much consumer or user-driven. And for whatever reason, I studied at the Carsten Institute of Technology, and there you have a connotation that you're an engineer. You're actually a lousy engineer, I have to say. So these economic engineers, they're half-baked, not fish, not fly, not meat, not fish. So anyhow. So actually I got tons of offerings, but unfortunately all in B2B world. Running something, train businesses, power generation, whatever. I was the guy who actually wanted to run something consumer-driven, fast-paced innovation and so on. And, it was a very difficult time, I have to say. So a lot of even great students at that time didn't find a job. And so actually, I was close to accepting one of these offers, I have to say, but even in my heart I felt like it's the wrong thing. So actually, I got a decline from something which I felt at that point in time at least very, very declining. It was a very famous innovation story. It was actually Siemens invented, or came up with a new technology which was called the DECT, the first digital cordless phones. That was called Gigaphone at that point in time. And actually, I applied there, and they declined me because they have a reorganization, so they can't offer me a job. And then actually I went back to that offer and worked with them for 3 months to convince them that they hire me, and I even had to sign that I take the risk that I can lose my job. And directly after my studies, it was a bit something my parents were not so happy with. Nevertheless, I did it, and fundamentally nothing happened. I think only the abbreviation of my department name changed. And it was a very good story for me, because it led me into something which is close to my heart. And I actually did my PhD not after my studies, but I decided to do my PhD in innovation management 3 years later. That I think was a path into that. So that I think was the first time where I asked for work money.
Just behind you, there's the next question.
Last question to my manager. Actually, I've seen startups rather than corporate. Your presentation, you have clearly outlined what benefits startups have corporate. But is there any points that the startups can learn from corporates? Can you say what is it that the startup should learn?
Maybe did everyone get it because the microphone was...
I can repeat it. Actually, the question is there anything startups can learn from the corporate world? I mean, if you boil it down to the essentials, startups have 10,000 strength, but one key weakness. Typically, they lack focus. Because the entrepreneurial spirit is so great that you want to tackle all the opportunities which are out there. And especially if you're a very young business, you want to tackle most of the opportunities all at the same time, which sometimes dilutes your focus and leads nowhere. So the key challenge most startups I have seen before they really scale up successfully is making a strategic bet and focusing. The key challenge for large companies, for corporates, is to defocus. They're really good at focusing, but they lack the ability to defocus. If you don't open up the playing field again, then you're really getting weak on the innovation side, which startups are doing exceptionally well. So this is why I think, if we bring these worlds together, the entrepreneurial leadership mode, the revolutionary mode for the startups with a certain focus to scale it out successfully, and then it's fundamentally very close to the challenge, that large companies have, because then it's about defocusing and keeping the innovation spirit alive. That's a challenge where most startups run when they are successful. Becoming successful is very difficult, but remaining successful is much more difficult. But by the way, sometimes we're meeting each other in the office now, so that he only asks the question when I'm on stage.
Maybe I have a question in the meantime. We're hearing a lot about startups and so on, but maybe it's not so easy after a bachelor or master's degree to just start your own business. Maybe first it's important thing some opportunities and experience in large corporations. It seems you have a pretty interesting job as your whole team does. Maybe you can elaborate a bit on interesting opportunities at your employer, for example, with students here.
Yeah, thanks. In German, we could call it a Steilvorlage, right?
Yeah.
You know, I stopped
You pay for this, you might say.
no, actually, I'm not here actually to promote SAP. So my idea is that, you know, to expose you with a couple of thoughts, to expose you to a wonderful team that we potentially have met yesterday in different locations, and be a bit inclined by what we do. Helping the world run better and improve people's lives, that what is SAP about. And if you feel like that might be something for you, we're happy to take your application, also with our team, of course. That's not why I'm here. So it's more about bringing a bit of inspiration here. And then I feel like if you want to follow the SAP logo, it's actually just across the street here in Waldorf. Give us a call. You have also my contact details here. But it's really more meant to be sharing a bit of the knowledge that we're having. And I'm really grateful and honored to be here with you today.
So, see that opportunity. More questions? Yes. Who has the dice? Can you please pass it on?
What I'm wondering, you went through a corporate career with many different steps on the way. When was your first exposure to startups and founding, and when did you, or when was the first idea to do so?
Yeah, actually, my first business I founded when I was 14. It was actually, we were moving like a mobile discotheque from village to village. That was actually my first business I founded with 14, together with a friend, and sometimes still my parents had to drive me there because I have no driving license. That was actually my first one, but I had that spirit. I also asked myself, actually, it's a very good question, why I'm always torn in between. And sometimes it was, 5-6 years ago, I was even torn. Because, the question is why I'm not only doing startups. Then I figured out myself, and always Steve Jobs said that a couple of years ago, you only find the patterns if you look back, you never find them if you look, to the future. And when I look back, I think that one reason I'm in the world is that, bringing these different worlds, the startup world and the corporate world together with the same mechanisms. And fundamentally, as I said at the beginning of my keynote, it's coming together much more than it would have been possible 10 years ago. And this is actually kind of why I think it's extremely interesting and like what I do. And then later on, they helped me out with 15 startups that I invested in my personal money, and I sit on the investment committee of the High Tech Fonds, and we do a lot of startups as Center for Digital Leadership. So I found a good way of, use my passion for something hopefully which brings others forward.
Hello.
Hello.
I found it very interesting that you said the biggest weakness of startups is that they don't have a focus, like the doctor said, or they could not have a focus because there are so many opportunities. That's right. What would you propose to focus on focus?
That's a really nice question. I mean, there's no universal answer, and I would not proclaim that startups generally do not have a focus. I mean, we see many startups which scale automatically, they evidently do have a focus, so I'm not the teacher of the world here. But generally, I see a tendency, and this lies in the DNA of an entrepreneur, to go for entrepreneurial opportunities. And unfortunately, these days, there are more entrepreneurial opportunities out there than we've ever had before. So there's tons of ways to get diluted from your past. So this is why I feel that the startups, I know I typically advise to make a strategic bet. At a certain point in time, I mean, you just don't know it. But really write down what your strategic bet might be. So I like the words making a strategic bet, because it's not a deterministic strategy in the old world, but it's a strategic bet. You know, it actually links conceptually to the world of real options. You know, that real option theory related to the financial option theory, you're making bets. And that has a leverage. And you can come out very big, but you're trying actually, and this is what smart entrepreneurs do, you're trying to risk, to mitigate the downside a bit. So if you mitigate the downside a bit, but then you full risk in terms of leveraging the opportunity, this is what a strategic bet is about, a real option. And you need, at the beginning, you need a portfolio of real option and basically make one strategic bet. I think then you can win big. You know, if it doesn't pay off, you take the next strategic bet, but you do that systematically. So I would not assume that the first strategic bet is the right enough, as no business plan in the world comes true as it was written, but basically the hypothesis that you have behind writing a business plan are really important. This is very similar to making a strategic bet. Hope that helps a bit.
Yeah, we have a question next to you from Fabian.
Hi, so first thank you for this really inspirational speech. My question would link to this combination of corporates and the startup world, as maybe I think many people here share my view that this was really an inspirational speech, and that you might be the role model of this link between really the corporate spirit, but at the same time this entrepreneurship approach and this entrepreneur spirit within the corporation, whereas at the moment it often looks like that the corporate world is really running behind. So my question would be, as you really live this statement of we as corporates need to be more startup, do you think that it is even possible that corporations at the moment are capable of teaching their talents how to be like that? Are they even possible to do so, or is this at the moment only possible by acquiring external knowledge?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the feedback and also for the question. I mean, corporates will never be a startup, and startups will never be a corporate, full stop. But when I started my presentation today, I tried to make the point there's fundamentally two different leadership management modes that we have to apply, the revolutionary and the evolutionary mode. And actually you can apply both modes in both organizations. You need the more than sustainable management mode when you scale out your startup than you had before, and you have to build up this competence, but at the same time you have to learn, the entrepreneurial leadership mode when you're a corporate. You will never become a perfect startup, and you shouldn't be, because you have the advantage of the assets of the customer base that you can leverage the strong brand, which you don't have a startup. Even the first employee, the first investor, you always have to convince just with your story. You have nothing part of the story. But thinking along the mechanisms I outlined today, agile approaches, thinking in terms of business model, innovation and transformation, building and allowing people, if you really crowdsource, not only external talent or ideas, but also internally, you find people in large organizations which really can have the potential to set you apart from the competition. Still remember one of our first entrepreneurial challenges we ran, where our Center for Digital Leadership was still part of the IT organization. And there was one guy, and no one knew him. And in IT, you don't expect to find an entrepreneur, honestly, in many cases. And he's in the assumption of an IT organization in the corporate environment. And he really blew us away, and he was fantastic, he had a great idea. And what I'm saying is you have to make sure that you have ways that you can identify ideas and talent and give them a path to innovate in an agile fashion. The only question that you have to answer yourself is, either you transform through the center of the organization, which is a very tough cookie, because it basically attracts all the corporate immune system, try to destroy your idea, or you innovate at the edges of the organization and create autonomy and autonomy. This is what I would rather suggest. Hope that answers the question partly.
Right. So my question is, what would you recommend? So I'm always torn between the idea of founding a full-time startup or founding like part-time next to a full-time job or a part-time job at a corporate company somewhere to have some kind of security. I think many people of my age always think like, should I go all in and found a full-time company, or should I try to do this next to a job with some kind of security? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very typical question and not one which you can easily ask. So, I can give you my advice, but ultimately it's your decision, and that kind of the advice I could give is, whenever you want to really scale out a new business, it requires all attention and your full dedication, no doubt about it. You will never find a VC who supports you if you're not fully dedicated. That's one point. You know that there are two different types of entrepreneurship. One is necessity-based and the other one is opportunity-based. Look at Spain. There was a very deep economic crisis which led to an increase in startup funding. So tons of startups, new startups in Spain, because actually it was necessity-based entrepreneurship. So the opportunity cost was pretty low. Because you had no corporate job, very good option. We live at least here, where we live in a very luxurious situation, because the opportunity cost is pretty high. So we have decent opportunities also in corporate environments, which are attractive, which leads you to this dilemma that you're outlining. I would suggest a two-staged approach. If you're not 100% sure, why don't you learn? Pick a job in a corporate environment in the area where you want to start up your idea. Learn about it and really dig deeper. Not treating the symptoms, as I said before, but really finding out what is the problem that needs to be solved for the world. And if you understand that, because if you start up your startup with a very low understanding of the industry dynamics and the real user and customer problems, then you're also only dealing with the symptoms and not identity working on the root cause. But if you have found that and made some money from the corporate side and you do that on the side, and there are very flexible models, for example, at SAP you can work for a certain period of time part-time. You can say I only work 60% for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and then you can do that in parallel, which is okay. And then you go back to 100%, for example. And then you drive it, and if you feel now you're convinced, then you have to be all in. Then there's no compromise allowed.
I think we had, everyone, the last question over there? Or should they come?
I think we blew up the agenda.
No, it's no problem because we unfortunately need to skip the next speaker.
Okay.
So, perfectly on time.
I was wondering why you're so relaxed.
Yeah.
If I look at the time here,
Yeah, can you hear me? Alright, cool. So I just had one question about...
where are you?
Oh, here.
Oh, hello.
Hi. So I just have a question about, a little more about what we can do. So what would you say probably 2 or 3 skills that we should pick up at university that would be really useful, maybe for founding a startup or working in a corporate or something?
That might lead you to a longer conversation. To put it in a nutshell, I'm teaching at universities and business schools, you know that, but I also feel like it was always what I tried to bring in, that revolutionary mode, entrepreneurial leadership, is not taught typically in business school. So typical business school or university education is very much geared to managing an established business in an incremental fashion. And I think what we need here at the universities is everything which supports, to educate people on breaking the rules, running or driving a revolution, a smaller or a bigger one, to change the world for the better. So we need also in the education that ambidextrous model of two strong hands. We do need to train management, but we also do need to train entrepreneurial leadership. And so if I now focus only on the entrepreneurial leadership side of the house, because the rest I think we're doing decently well, then I think founding a business has a lot to do with just trying it out. It's really funny. So if you have someone who's also teaching, I think you have to experience it. In my class, with my entrepreneurship class, it's always kind of you found a startup in a fast-forward fashion. So actually, I guide you through founding a startup until you pitch to the investor and you launch it and you scale it. So actually, I try to immerse you in that experience. So I think it has very much to do with sending out people on the street with a minimal viable product and just testing it, despite the fact this is the grandma with 95 who gives you the answer and the feedback on your minimal viable product. But every time you learn. And I think this is an approach, not only talking about or traditionally teaching about it, but immersing people into that environment and that learning experience, I think is something you should use whenever the business school or the university offers that. And here at Mannheim, I'm at least aware of a couple of these offerings, which you definitely should use. So it's not just one skill, it's basically a sequence of skills that you should be knowing. And then, kind of two things. You should write a business plan, despite the fact it never comes true, but really make sure that you get the assumptions right, because this is the true asset. And the second thing is, you have to understand your cash flow statement. Because most of the startups fail, this is counterintuitive, due to the fact that they run out of cash when they scale. It's actually the Dell model, vice versa. The Dell model is, you order, the old Dell model, you order your PC or your notebook, then it gets product tags, then it gets produced, and then Michael Dell paid to the suppliers. So actually he had a very time difference between getting the cash from you as a customer and paying to the suppliers. In many businesses, the other way around. You first have the cash out and then the cash in, because the cash in comes later. If you have that 4 times, it's not a problem. If you have it 10 times, it's not really a big problem. If you have it 100 times, because the business scales up, it becomes a problem, and most startups run out of cash when they scale out, and there is a time difference. So this is something you definitely should not, after this session today, in that trap you should not fall, because I've seen too many startups fail with that. So these 2 skills might be something to take away from your university education.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So it's a chance to wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up. That was a Schleifer for me now. So what you're here, you hear a lot about innovation in startups and so on, but it's also important to pay attention in the university classes, in particular in tax and accounting, as you see, in order to understand cash flow statements.
Are you teaching?
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't know.
Okay, so...
And I will not tell you that you gave me $20 before I came on stage.
Well, they have to take the course, so it's
okay, it's mandatory.
Okay, one applause again for Carsten. Thank you very much.